Best part about hostel is that you become a family. If you don't know something, the best thing is to say, I don't know. Foreign service provides you a tremendous scope for initiatives. Anything that you want to do, you can do that. Do not hesitate to speak your mind what you think is right. Be consistent in your studies. If you have allocated 6 hours, 8 hours, do that. A man who doesn't leave things to others.
I am your host Gaurav Garg and we welcome all our viewers to our show Amazing Mentor. Today with us is Mr. Anil Trigunayat. He is an IFS officer. He has served in the Indian mission in Cote d'Ivoire, Bangladesh, Mongolia, USA, Russia, Sweden, Nigeria, Libya and Jordan. In the Ministry of External Affairs, he has worked in the Economic, West Asia and North Africa and Consular divisions. He has also served as Director General, Joint Secretary for the Gulf and HUD Division in the Ministry of External Affairs, New Delhi. Thereafter, Mr. Trigunayat worked as Deputy Chief of Mission in the rank of Ambassador in the Embassy of India, Moscow, prior to his superannuation in May 2016. He served as Ambassador of India to Jordan and Libya and High Commissioner to Malta. It's a pleasure to welcome Mr. Anil Trigunayat to our show Amazing Mentor. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much.
So tell us about your childhood and do childhood memories make you happy or sad?
Childhood is way back now. Well, childhood memories are always the one you always treasure. I was born in a place called Bareilly in the mission hospital there. My father used to work there. And thereafter we went to Punjab and we were there. Came back and my grandfather used to be a landlord, and so I lived with my mother there for a few years, and then when I was 4 my mother passed away. So my childhood with my mother was very limited, but it was very enlightening all the way because fortunately I still remember all the things about that time and having to spend time with her. And then most of the time I spent in the boarding schools and with my father, who became my friend. I remember we were living in Tarai area, in Bajpur, Kashipur area, and there 62 war started. And when the 62 war started, for the first time, one heard that blackouts, you saw all kinds of changes taking place. Then we were the first ones who had a television, black and white television. So everybody around will come and gather and listen to Amin Sayani. So those were some very beautiful memories. And in the hostels that you stay in Nainital, where I studied most of my schooling I did, and my college I did from there, and then I joined the JNU. So for my childhood, I think that I have these wonderful memories of people, places, and I love travel. And that of my father, who became really like a friend to me after to all three of us, we were 3 brothers, sisters. And he always traveled was my passion, which he always promoted. He said, you must go and see places, meet people. And that's why I began to really veer unintentionally into something. Travel became a companion for me in a way. Mentally, I was always thinking, where would I go now? Go to Rajasthan, track there, go to mountain Himalayas, track there. So those are the kind of things that was some of the most finest. And then you stay in the villages, sit with people, talk to them. And some of my own villages, memories, which are very beautiful, were that when we would go and the people would know that he's their grandson or his son, every household, by the time I will reach my own house, every household, every lady or a man, they will accost you, they will welcome you into their house, they will give you a little jaggery good and milk, or mattha, jisko kehte hain. And they'll just be, because it was such a great life. And my grandfather had he was very fond of chess. So all the time chess and chopper he used to play. And he had a very good family friend who was a Muslim gentleman, and we really grew up in their house, so to say, every year in vacations when we used to go and meet with all family. So I had a very wonderful childhood, even though at an early age I lost my mother. But I would say that those are fond memories of her. But at the same time, of everything else, it was the most beautiful memories. And it was a formation of your future in my childhood.
So tell us about your educational background, schooling and higher education.
I studied in Nainital. I did my schooling there, and then, in fact, what happened is I tell you a very interesting story. We were living in Baspur, and I was about 4.5 years old. And my father, when my mother passed away, my father thought that we should take him to a school. So there used to be one school there, which was sort of a co-ed school and very poorly maintained. There was only one bench on which one side the lady teacher would sit, the other side the boys will sit, and the other teacher will sit. So he thought, oh, it was not the right place to get the education. And then he helped one of the fathers who was traveling, an Irish father, to start a school there, which became a St. Mary's in our area, first Christian missionary school. And then, of course, he founded the other school there. And then I went to Nainital to start my formal education there. And then studied till graduation in BSB Government College, which was there, and then eventually it became Kumai University. And after that, I came to JNU. I studied Russian history, culture, and civilization there. And then I qualified in the different services and eventually joined the Foreign Service.
So any hostel story, memories you would like to share?
Hostel, every day was a memory. It's all of us have our bit of naughty stories, and also the best part about hostel is that you become a family. The people, all the students who are living with you, they become your part of your being, basically. So good or bad, whatever you do with them. You grow up, you learn with them, you develop a certain kind of a discipline. So this is precisely what happened to us, and I think we did a lot of things. For example, once we thought that if we go over China Peak, it was called China Peak at the time, right? Now it's called Subhash Peak in Nainital, highest mountain peak. And if you go from the other side of that, then you could reach Jim Corbett Park. So in one of our silly moments, we decided, okay, we'll trek over that mountain and then go across through to Jim Corbett near Ramnagar or somewhere. And that was a journey which was, we would have almost lost our lives coming through the forest. So we used to do those kind of things. I mean, I was a boxer in my school days, and I fought until the nationals, All India, and represented my university, my college. So that also used to take a lot of time. Then I was also associated with the student union at the time there. So tried to fight for having our own university at that time, which was supposed to be Uttarakhand University at the time. But unfortunately, due to the politics, they decided to have 3 universities, not 2 or not 1. The one university was Kumaon, other is Garhwal, and third is Ruhelkhand. So our dream was that we could have one big university in the place, which we finally got it there. I mean, as a result of being the student leader. So it was a great fun. And I remember one more last thing I tell you before this, which you might be strange, but when I went for my boxing competition nationals in Bangalore, during the quarterfinals, I got hit very badly in the eye. So my eye was swollen. When I came back, my final exams were there. As you know, there are guys who are really leaders, and they said, oh, we can have your exam held in the hostel itself, in your room. We can ask the principal or vice chancellor to help with that. And then you can write, everybody can help you and all that. So I said, listen, that I'm not going to do. Even if I have to fail, I don't mind. And so I went there, and with my eye closed and paining and all that, I wrote the exams. Fortunately, I passed, and that was.
So what was your dream profession?
It is very surprising that and let me tell you something which not many people know. I came from a reasonably well-off family. We didn't have to strive or struggle or anything. Money was not a problem. I was the first person who eventually got into the government service. First person in the family. Before me, after me also, there were not many. So my grandfather always thought that his sons were not going to work for the British government and all that. And then he didn't let them. So my father thought that it was a good idea that if I was interested in civil services, might as well go in those. But I wanted to basically, at that time, travel, see places, report, write about it. That was my idea. But that was something I could afford to, because I didn't have to really work for earning that money, given the family background. Then I just for that purpose, I joined, leaving some of the better jobs. I joined the job of a flight purser in Air India. At that time, I preferred that because that allowed me travel. So I traveled to about 40 countries before I joined the Foreign Service, and that too in big style. And I thought in a very different way as far as the life was concerned, and I took it in a stride. But my father always supported me, in fact, for everything except on two occasions. Once, when I was trying to do my master's, I wanted to do master's in English or economics. And he said, since you have studied BSc and all that, why do you want to complete your education first? So his concept was that you must do your master's in it and do a second master's. That was one. Second time, when I was in Air India and I was flying around all over the world and this and that, and when various services which I had appeared in exams, in competitive exams, I had cleared those. So he was thinking that, when you qualify in these exams, then there is a police verification. So every now and then the police will go and my father and take $500 or something from a tie. So he said, yeah, what is this nonsense going on? I mean, you are not joining anything and you are doing this, that. Then I went and told him, I said, listen, I mean, I'm happy with this kind of thing, what I'm doing. He said, but this is not a career for you. This is not something. So if you are working for money, then you come home and work in the farm. If you want to really do something, then join this one. There is the Foreign Service. That was the last one left, actually. So, and I had already told the ministry that I'll join a year later, not before. So then they lastly told me that we can't give you any more extension. And then I decided to join.
So you never thought of becoming a boxer?
I like boxing. Actually, you will be surprised that my father again did not like very much. He said, what is this game, man? So, but I really enjoyed it. And in India, we do not have those kind of opportunities to go that level. I was reasonably a good boxer, I must say. But it teaches you discipline. It teaches you, apart from for 9 minutes of the game, you have to work hours and hours of practice every day in order to do that and to be a good boxer. I enjoyed it. I lost to an Army Arjun Award winner in the quarterfinals in Bangalore. And so that was great. And that person and his coach came and complimented me. And I was a captain of the UP team also. So this was a great enough satisfaction. But you couldn't make a career out of it. But that was, of course, not possible at the time.
So what about your hobbies and interests?
My hobby number one is travel, reading, and basically nowadays it is golf, which is good. After retirement, I can spend time. It is also a game which gives you great pleasure. You play against yourself. So that's something. Meeting people is something I love. And now I also like to interact with the youth. So whatever little they can learn from my mistakes, it is good that way.
So what all challenges did you face while you were preparing for your examination?
Well, I was fortunate to be in a place where there was, in JNU, where there was an ecosystem for preparation of the exams. Although I must say that at that time, there was a different system of recruitment than now. It was improved upon later on, changed quite significantly. At that time, for the Indian Police Service, when you appeared, then you had to, you only wrote 2 papers and things like that, and then for Allied and other services, you had to write more papers and something like that. So I had appeared earlier that also. So when I was in JNU, it was much more easier because there were a large number of students who were studying. The library facilities were available. It was a university which was intellectually very sound. Everybody was ready to help you with that. So it was easier to do that. But I did not attend any coaching institute or anything. I tried to do everything on my own. The biggest problem was that I had realized that although physics was my background, that it was not going to be greatly helpful. So you had to use another paper. I needed another subject. So I chose sociology that time. And it was a new subject. But I really enjoyed it. And you'll be surprised that I got very good marks in this sociology also. And that's why one could make it. So challenges was like you have to keep to your time. You have to be consistent. You have to be open to somebody else telling you that could be a better way of doing things. Interacting with colleagues, friends who are studying preparing for the exam is always good. It helps you. So another challenge is basically that you have to forget everything at least for 8 to 10 months while you are actually between the preliminary exam writing to the main exam writing. And in your interviews, you have to be yourself. You have to be thorough. You have to stop bluffing. You cannot. Bluff is immediately called out because they are very senior and experienced people who are sitting across. So if you don't know something, the best thing is to say, I don't know.
So where did you start your career journey from?
As you know, in the services, when you qualify, after that you do your training, and after the training, then you are posted abroad. And I went to my first posting was in Côte d'Ivoire, which is called Ivory Coast. Ivoire is Ivory, Côte is Coast. So it was a francophone country. At that time, it was known as Ivory Coast. But then those people decided that since we are a francophone country, its name should be Côte d'Ivoire. And there was ivory used to be found there plenty, but anyway, later on it was not that much left because of poaching and all. So it was it used to be a French colony, but one of the most developed countries in the world. And I knew French language, so for me it was much more easier to blend there. And then when I arrived there, within 3 months, my ambassador left. So as a young officer, I became in charge of the embassy. So I had to learn everything from the job of the messenger to the ambassador, and so it was a great experience. It was a language, new people. I liked Africans, and that's when I started appreciating the culture. We did not have much exposure to Africa as such, not me, but India also. I mean, we had great relations or whatever, but at the same time, we were not doing enough. So there was a lot to do. This is a country which produced large quantities, or rather one of the biggest cocoa producers in the world. It was also the coffee producer in the world. So cashew. So you had to work with them. Then African Development Bank had headquarters there. So we could do so many projects for the Indian companies. I traveled with the students from university into the countryside all over. So that's the best way to know was all the African students who were studying in Ivory Coast University. They were going for an international program. So initially I got a time. I went with them for 7-8 days. Which was great. I was not a student, but they were happy to take me along. And it was as a diplomat, young diplomat, I think this was a very good exposure to the youngsters. And they became my friends, and they remain my friends till today.
So how was your early days as an officer, and what all challenges did you face?
Well, early officer, the thing is that challenge is everything you have to know. You know in the training that what kind of work you are going to do. But when you are on the job, it is a very different kind of thing. You learn that you have to be sensitive to the needs of the Indians abroad or the people who want to go. You need to be responsive. If you are in a system, then you have a boss, you have colleagues, you have to learn to adjust how you would do that. Because I had come from a corporate side, so I had a very different mindset. In the family background was very different. So when you get into a job profile, then there is a structure, there is a hierarchy. You have to work within the hierarchy. You don't have that I am the boss, so I will do everything. So that's not the case, which can be in certain settings, in the private sector or wherever. But here, it is entirely, there is a line which is there. Although the Foreign Service provides you a tremendous scope for initiatives. Anything that you want to do, you can do that. So that's a challenge that you have to overcome. Then you have to be good in the languages. If you know the language, is very good. Your communication skills have to be good. And you learn a lot of things over time with interacting with the people, with cultures, with learning sensitivities of the people. And that can only happen as a diplomat if you're outgoing and you want to meet a lot of people. Then only it can work and you can learn from them. If you want to sit back home and think that I'm the big boss, I'm an officer, I'm a diplomat, and whoever has to come. Like, for example, there, in the first posting, I was very surprised to see that a lot of people used to come and ask me that, give me the address of Rekha or Amitabh Bachchan, we want to write a letter. They were so very popular there. And then in one day, there was a theater where they used to show movies. And I went, and one girl came and started talking to me, African girl, started talking to me in typical Mumbaiya language, जाने का इधर बोलने का वो सब. And then I asked her, I said, how do you learn? Are you learning Hindi? She said, no, I'm watching Hindi films, these films, and that's how I learned it. So that was a good thing. That's an area that you can tap for creating your, bilateral relationships for the country's benefit. So apart from trade and apart from politics, apart from consular and visa, cultural education, these are the things that are very important for a long-lasting software development, soft power development.
So, what all type of departments have you handled in your course of journey?
Well, I have done everything really. I mean, when you are in the embassy, small embassy, then you do everything. I mean, typically every embassy has an ambassador, and the big embassies have a deputy ambassador. Under him, there are officers, there are different departments. The departments are like political. There is a department which is economic and commercial. Then you have a consular and visa department. Then you may have military wings, different military wings can be there. Then there can be a cultural and press wing, the two wing, press and information wing, and the culture wing. So education wing can be in some places depending on the country. So about like in Moscow and other places, there are 16, 17 wings like that. So each wing has a very senior officer that's in charge, right? So as far as external affairs ministry people are concerned, we generally mostly deal with, in small embassies, one or two diplomats, you nearly deal with everything, right? Apart from administration down to consular to visa to political to culture. So that you have to do that. As ambassador, you're in charge of everything, so you have to handle everything. In the Ministry of External Affairs, I have handled, basically, I was in the political division, which was like WANA division, which is West Asia North Africa division. At that time, 1992, when we established diplomatic relations with Israel, I was handling the desk. I was handled in economic division, which was economic diplomacy. That became my major area of expertise. And then I was also in consular passport visa. We started the PIO's card system for the Indians living abroad. Then I used to go and inspect passport offices. We tried to introduce some kind of digitization at that time, satellite-based systems of verifications and all. So you can have a lot of initiatives that can go on. So I was very fortunate to have been in different countries and in different wings I have handled, except of course the military wing directly.
So, as you have shared the incident of that movie, that lady came to you and started speaking in Mumbai language. So, any other incident that you would like to share?
Well, there are many many incidents that happen. I mean, they will come that not only there. I mean, in Nigeria, for example, when I was there, Nigeria has such Nollywood, they call it, their own film industry, and they are one of the largest in the world themselves. And you go to the, I went to the doctor, Indian doctor who was there, Dr. Hassan at his clinic, and there were these ladies of some Indian serial, like Saas Bahu type serial was going on, and there were all these African ladies who were sitting there, and they were, they were sobbing. So when you see that, they were able to relate to the emotions and the way things are going, and they won't move out of that. So that is something that is very interesting in that. And then Arab world also, it's very popular, the Indian films and this. In Russia, when I was there, you'll be surprised. Or rather, I should tell you something about Mongolia. We had started our cultural center there, and Mongolia, is a very cold, very a difficult place, but a very beautiful place. People are lovely there. And so we thought that at the cultural center, we'll have this event where we should have Indian dances and something like that. So we tried to get people, and the Indian troupe was coming, dance troupe. Then one girl came to me in the office, and she said, I want to dance on the Indian songs in this program. And whereas we had some Chow group from Orissa, it comes from there, was going to play with the masks and all that, So this girl said, no, I can't. And then she said, I will sing, I know this song, Mere Haathon Mein Dono Chudiyan Hain, of, this Shri Devi number in one of the films. So I said, listen, I don't know, can we fit in? And she said, please allow me and this, that. So I told my wife, I said, you go and meet my wife and just show her, what is that? Then she was carrying a cassette in which her own dance and this one. And my wife gave her sari and all this, this lady then, you will not believe it, the lady worked for the whole night. And next day, when there was the performance, I was amazed. Everybody else was actually that she was perfection. You know, the way she danced, the way it was absolutely, she had imitated Shri Devi like anything else with her own grace. Secondly, in Russia, as we Indian culture, language, and all that, very people love Indian culture. Bollywood has become the latter thing, but before that was classical dance, music, yoga. They have become very popular now. So you see those happening there. And we conducted at our cultural center a competition. We do have a cultural center where we teach, but at the same time, people came from all over Russia, and there were nearly 100 groups of people who had come, and these girls, and what beautiful dances, and they worked on their own in different places. They learned somewhere in India and then came and started their own institutes. So that is what is a lasting dimension of the relationship. So there have been so many incidents like that, which is really amazing. Another time I remember one of the I won't name them, but it was what you can do as an Indian. I mean, that embassies are supposed to look after the Indians. In New York, when I was there, I was not handling the visa section. I was trade commissioner, so I was looking after trade industry. But during the lunchtime, suddenly the phone somehow rang on my desk. So I picked it up. I was sitting in the office, and it was one industrialist, Indian top guy, who was at JFK airport, and his pouch was stolen. And his wife used to be a former film actress. And he said, listen, we don't have money. We don't have anything. A passport's gone, everything. We don't know what to do. And now we have a very small baby. So I told them, I said, why don't you come to the embassy? And we can only help you here. So he said, but I don't have money. I said, you come here, I'll pay for your cab. Doesn't matter, you come here and we'll see. Then they came and they were distraught completely. Made them sad. Baby was hungry. It can happen to anybody. But the richest can also suffer. And then I spoke to our colleague, and immediately the passport, of course. He was a rich guy. He took on the phone. He got all the cards, everything in no time. But it can happen to anyone. And then you have the poorest of people. So that is what I always say, that you have to look after everyone, all Indians alike, irrespective of whether they are poor or rich. That's nothing. They are your constituency. They look up to you as a family. You look up to as head of their family. They come to you, give them due regard, and help wherever you can.
So what's that one thing you love about your profession the most?
The best part about this profession, I think, in diplomacy in the foreign service, the way it works, is it provides you tremendous initiative to improve the relationship. Now, you do how you want to do it. It is the field is really a green field. So any country you go to, you start there. Of course, it's a challenge to understand the country culture, its language, modes, customs, and how people react. But then you have your own interest, national interest to serve. But at the same time, how does it happen? It happens when you create goodwill in the country. For example, like when I was posted to Libya as ambassador, it was in a complete chaos. There was militias roaming around. The war was happening in the country. People were killed. And for some reason, they had started not liking India at all because of our stance in the United Nations Security Council. We were against the military intervention, but we abstained on that vote. So the people thought that we were with the dictator, Gaddafi. And that's why at the grassroots level, there was a lot of angst against India. And so to improve that from such a big negative, to bring it to zero, was your main task. So how do you make people understand that, look, what we are doing is for your own good, but it is not something that we are against anybody or for anybody. So those are the kind of things that you do as a diplomat, and which are a great challenge for you, but very satisfying. If somebody is going to invest in, let's say, Mexico, and you can bring them to India, it's a big, boost to your own process of growing, and for your country, interest. So those are the kind of things I enjoyed about the service.
So who is your mentor?
In service, I would say we used to have Ambassador S.K. Lamba. He was my ambassador in Moscow. Of course, I have many bosses who were nice, good, taught every time. But he was one person with whom I learnt a lot. He would let you, his basic principle was, he will tell you like this, he will not chase you. He said, can you do it? Yes, I can do it. Then go ahead and do it, right? And he used to maintain that if you do something, good, success is yours. If you fail, the failure is mine. And I stand behind you. Now, that is something that holds you. Then he was, they both, husband and wife, I would say, were really very graceful and gracious, which is something, and accessible. Even if a peon will call you at his house, he will go there, to his house. So that is something that I learned from him, and I think I can call it, we don't have formal mentorship, but every boss becomes your mentor in one way or the other. But the one whom you learn willingly a lot of things by example, I would say he was one of those.
According to you, what is the role of hard work, luck, and smart work in this success? And how would you define success?
Well, hard work, there is no exception to this rule. Hard work is the hard work, it always pays, but it has to be a directed effort. It cannot be a diffused effort. When you are doing, okay, this, I do that, and you have to be focused in your mind and do your best, whether it is for achieving an objective or cracking the exams or doing whatever you do. Now, success is, in my view, is what gives you happiness. You should feel happy. Because in my view, if you are not happy, you cannot keep anybody happy. So if I have done something dispassionately, I have done something which has been properly done, which can do a larger good to the larger people, I will call it a success. But if I have done something only for myself, I would consider it as a mere one achievement.
So if you are able to get hold of time machine, which phase of your life would you like to roll back?
I would like to undo a lot of things I have done, but I think the best time, and I've been, before I say anything, I must tell you that as far as everybody asks you which country you like the most and things like that. But I tell you, I've been one of those fortunate ones for whom every assignment has been an addition to, my own development. And I have enjoyed every bit of it everywhere, most difficult to the easiest. So that's one thing. But if I were to go back anywhere, I think I would go back to my college days.
So how would you define the roles and responsibility of Indian Foreign Service officer?
Well, Indian Foreign Service officer carries the mantle of a lot of goodwill, carries the mantle of success for the country, serving the national interests, and apply it in a foreign territory, basically. Of course, you work in India also, but basic job is to somehow improve your relationship to the next level. That is the job of every ambassador, every diplomat is. So I think that the job of diplomats is, of course, peace is one thing you work for. Development of your country or the country where you're posted is also very important in that sense. So the peace and development are very important. Avoidance of conflict is another major dimension of your job. Try to identify synergies that can help both the countries. Because if anything that we do is of mutual benefit, it has a greater chance of success.
So tell us about your role and responsibility as Chairman, Confederation of Education Excellence.
Well, this Confederation of Education Excellence is a group, it's an NGO, which is working basically to create certain value systems among various schools, colleges, impressionable children, trying to also tell them that, yes, look, our past also had a very great value education system. Can we learn from them? We have achieved a great deal 2,000, 3,000 years ago, but in the recent past, we have not done much. Is the Vidya Dadati Vinayam and all those principles, do they have any possibility of incorporation today? How can today's digital system work it? How we can value add the education? Those are the kind of projects they normally take. So as a chairman, what I have just taken last year, but I've been associated with them for the last 5 years after my retirement. And I thought that because of attending their conferences and meetings every year and the network of schools that they have developed, they are trying to now go into sustainable education, how it can be done, how the new education policy can work better in the domain. So I think that they adopt certain schools, work with them on certain projects, and try to as much as, because see, it's not a very big organization, but it has very group of very well accomplished people who are vice chancellors and experts from their ideas. So they are the experts in education sector. So I bring about an external dimension to it. Can we find some companies outside India or groups that can work together so that we can have exchange of best practices, which can then be channeled into the government system or education ministry or in the schools, private sector. So that's what it does.
So, what was the most challenging mission of your career?
I would say the most challenging in terms of work was possibly Libya. Because as I mentioned that there was a grassroots discontent against India at that time when I arrived there. And we had many companies, billions of dollars worth of projects that were there. So we were facing an uphill task. And therefore, how to correct that misperception about India was the big challenge. The countries like US, UK, France, Italy, and Germany, everybody, they were not in favor of India at the time because we had voted against the resolution, against them in that sense. So they were trying to project as if India was with the dictator. So that was creating a very major block. So I tried to use media also, use public direct outreach to the people and influential people to somehow correct that perception in the first place before you can actually start working. So you have to create that trust, and that was the biggest challenge. I mean, physical security was a very major challenge. I mean, there were always bullets flying here and there every day, shootings taking place, people are being kidnapped or killed. That was happening there. That could happen because I always believed that you cannot die twice, you only die once. So when you're doing your job, you do your job. I mean, you cannot be just sitting at home and thinking things will work out. So you have to be in the field, and that's what precisely I did. And I was happy. That was the greatest satisfaction for me because when I left, the militia groups respected me, the governments respected me, the people liked India. They started talking about India back. We got one of the biggest project, first ever greenfield project awarded was given to an Indian company because we said that we are there on the ground. Even despite the problems, I was able to get the Indian companies to come back and complete their projects, despite security issues. We faced everything, but we delivered. So this is what created a trust for India again. And I think that personally, I feel it was difficult, but it was a very timely thing for me to be there and to be a part of this history.
So, you have served many appointments. So among all the appointments, which one is your favorite appointment?
I just mentioned to you before that I am one of the very few people in the government who would say that all the postings were finest in many ways. I mean, I can tell you, I enjoyed every bit wherever I was. I've been in New York, I've been in Libya, I've been in Mongolia, I've been in Bangladesh, I've been everywhere. And the thing is that when I was in Bangladesh, a lot of my school friends were industrialists, they're businessmen, this, that. So life was great fun and you could do a lot of work as well. When I was in Ivory Coast, there was the first country of my posting. I had a great experience there. I made hundreds of local friends, and I had a great access to the president because his son became my good friend. So I think that where I was in Russia, which is a great country to be in. But if you just want the living wise, just to live or something like that, I think that Nordic countries, they're like Sweden, where I was, are nice to live in. Because there the air is so pure, the water is absolutely clean. You just go out, you have the headache, 10 minutes you walk, you are perfectly fine. There is no intrusive government or police or anything like that. So there are a lot of good things there. People are innovative, they are very private. I really enjoyed being there in that sense.
So what advice would you like to give to new officers?
Well, I would like to say that they should be open-minded. They should be go-getters. They should learn to network and make friends for the sake of friendship, not necessarily just for the work. Very often you will hear people say, oh, this is work related. But these friendships last a long time because very often you get posted back there. It had happened to me in Moscow. I went there in 2002, and then I went back as deputy ambassador in 2010. And when I went there, all my friends who were there, they had risen in the ranks and they had become ministers, this, that. So you start from a ready plate. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. And that's why it's important. Then blend in the system, learn the system, how much it is. And do not hesitate to speak your mind. That is the most important thing. Because anything, a policy, or your, I mean, sometimes you may put down because you're a junior officer, but put down on the paper what you think, because that's the best part about Indian government system. We have to write notes. So in your notes, you can always give your opinion. Somebody may overrule you, but at least it is on the paper, it is in the memory. So do not hesitate to speak your mind, what you think is right.
So what all are do's and don'ts you would suggest to students who are planning to prepare for UPSC examination?
Well, do's is that number one is you must know your strengths as far as your education is concerned. How good are you in a particular subject? Is the subject of your interest? Are you thorough in that? Then you must start from these NCERT books upwards and try to create your solid base on these things, because when the questions come, they are very, they are not so straightforward. The majority of the questions are by analysis, implication, by illustration and all that. So you need to be very thorough about it. Your fundamentals should be very clear. So that is what you must work on throughout. Then choosing the right subjects is also a key to your success. Because if you don't understand it properly, just taking it for the heck of it, it might backfire on you. Then the other thing I would say is that be consistent in your studies. If you have allocated 6 hours, 8 hours, do that. And frequent revisions, all those are common sense things, but they are very important. Also, it is good these days because there are many institutions that have opened up where people have expertise. So it does not hurt you to seek their guidance if you can afford it. Then it is good to join one or two good institutes, especially before the interviews. It will be a good idea to do if you qualify in the written exam, then you must take a little bit of practice sessions, because people in the services come from all strata of the society. Very often, many of them have not had any exposure to this, how to respond to questions, what kind of questions can come. So these mock interviews can help you sometimes. Not always, but sometimes definitely. It will prepare you a little better, 5% better than the others. Of course, if you are intelligent, you will qualify. If you are consistent, hardworking, you can. What you should not is just obviously put these things. Then you would know that what not to do. As attempting something that you have only half, or you don't know much about. So bluffing is something you should not do, whether in written exam or in oral exams. That is very important. Speak what is there. One thing I would say that if you don't know something, please say, I don't know, sir. You are not expected to know everything under the sun, but that you have the moral authority or a moral conviction to admit that, well, you're human. Yes, you don't know. No, you don't know. Better close. I can tell you this thing happened to me. When I was interviewing for my Indian Forest Service exam. At that time, I went to the board, and there was a big board, and they kept on asking me a question on certain things in physics or whatever, or something. I am forgetting, but I said, sir, I don't know. Then they put it in a different way. Again, the same question, again, the same question. So they asked me 5 times the same question, putting in a different way. And every time I said, I don't know that. At that time, what used to happen is when you come out of the interview, you had to write a resume, how your interview went, right? You have to write that on a piece of paper. So I wrote 4 lines in which I wrote that I answered a few questions, but most of the questions were repeatedly asked of me about which I had already expressed my ignorance. So I don't think it was a good interview. I wrote like that, and you will be surprised that I got about 58% marks in the interview. So it is not that, they were probably prodding me to adventure into this, answering this question by putting in different way. But I did not bite the bait. So very often you will say, yes, sir, and then they will catch you immediately. Oh, no, sir, no, it could have been. That is the worst thing, when you flutter. So that is something avoidable.
So now we will start our rapid round.
Mm-hmm.
Your favorite actor and actress?
Actress was Smita Patil. And among the actors, I like Nawazuddin Siddiqui.
Your favorite color?
Blue.
Your favorite destination?
Mountains.
Your favorite car?
I used to love Jonga by the time Second World War II car, but they are no longer there.
Success in one line?
Happiness.
Things in your wish list?
Hope the pandemic is over soon.
Your second choice of career?
Truck driver.
At last, one line that defines you.
A man who doesn't leave things to others.
So thank you very much for your time, sir, and it was pleasure talking to you and the advices, the journey and the challenges you have shared on our show. It was pleasure talking to you, sir.
Thank you, Gaurav. Such a great pleasure. All the best to you and to everybody else who listens to us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for watching Amazing Mentor. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button to get regular updates. Thank you very much.